So I stumbled across this really cool book. I'm going to show you on the screen here. Dark Matter. It's by Blake Crouch. And I checked it out on the Overdrive. I think they call it Libby now. You can get books off the library and put it right on your iPad or Kindle. So I read this book over Memorial Day weekend. And hope you had a good weekend, by the way. And I was blown away. I did not expect it to be as good as it was. Now, so it's a recommended summer read. I'm going to go over, kind of the plot, not give away any spoilers. This is just my review. One thing is, I think you kind of need to be a fan of sci-fi, science, and I don't know, just maybe like fantasy too. But I couldn't put the book down. So basically, this is by Blake Crouch, and he does have a series they put on Netflix. I'm gonna have to look it up and remember. I can't remember what it was, but basically, this is about it's about a physicist, and he ends up traveling through the multiverse. And the multiverse, I'm just gonna try to remember how to explain it off the top of my head. I know. The best way I'll explain it is how in the novel he explains the theory of Schrodinger's cat. And so if you've ever heard of the thought experiment, Schrodinger's cat, I'm going to go over what that is. Because when they had it in the novel, I just had to kind of stop reading and just think about it for a while and like all the possibilities. It's really cool. So Schrodinger's cat was a thought experiment proposed by the physicist Erwin Schrödinger in 1935 to illustrate some of the peculiarities and paradoxes of quantum mechanics, particularly related to the concept of superposition. So this experiment involves placing a hypothetical cat, not a real cat, inside a sealed box along with a radioactive substance, a Geiger counter, a hammer, and a vial of poison. The radioactive substance has a 50% chance of decaying within a specified time period. If it decays, the Geiger counter will detect it and trigger the release of the hammer, which will break the vial of poison, causing the cat to die. If the substance does not decay, the cat will remain alive. So the paradox arises because, according to the principles of quantum mechanics, until the box is opened and observed, that's the key point, observed, the cat exists in what's called a superposition of states. Because the cat is not observed yet, it is in this kind of quantum state of both alive and dead at the same time. The only way, and I'll get back to explaining this, the only way I can describe that is there is the experiment where they throw the particles against the wall, right? So it's the particle and wave experiment where the wave stayed a wave until they had a camera on it or the human eye observing it, and then the wave turned into a particle. So the theory that we're living in a simulation, so for example, if you're playing a video game or your kids are playing a video game, the computer can only handle so much memory. It won't create the whole video game world. It only creates what the avatar is seeing, that environment right there as it travels through. It's like constructing the buildings, and then where the avatar's not, the buildings kind of fade away because the computer can only store so much memory to create the environment where the avatar is, just a section at a time. So with the wave particle theory is if we're not observing it. So for example, over Memorial Day, I went up north to the forest. I'm going to put a video out. I took some really nice pictures for you to see. But so say you go way up in the forest, and let's just pretend nobody is there, like not an animal, a camera, anything. If the theory is correct, the forest collapses back into a wave, the mountains, the lake, etc. And as soon as there's an observer, an animal, a camera, a human, the wave becomes a particle again. So, continuing on here. So, in quantum mechanics, until the cat in the box, until someone opens that box and observes the cat exists in that superposition state. It's both alive and dead at the same time. So it's in what's called a probabilistic state, where the decay of the substance is in a superposition of decaying and not decaying, almost like a state of in-between. There's a word I want to use. It'll come to me here in a second. So when the box is opened and observed, only then does the wave function collapse. And then the particles reconnect, and the cat is going to be found either alive or dead. The physicist Schrodinger proposed this thought experiment to highlight the peculiarities of quantum mechanics, such as the idea that particles can exist in multiple states simultaneously, known as superposition. Okay, well, let's think about that for a second. So remember when I said you have a wave, when you observe, it turns into the particle. Well, not only is it the particle right there, but that particle can exist in other parts of the room and the universe. Okay, so that's that whole underlying principle of quantum mechanics or quantum physics. So this experiment using Schrodinger's cat thought experiment is used to illustrate the concept of superposition and to emphasize the differences between quantum mechanics and classical physics. It's important to note that Schrodinger's cat is a theoretical construct, not an actual experiment that was carried out. Okay. So it gets me back to the novel Dark Matter. So the physicist in this story, he has been able to construct a box similar to the Schrodinger's cat experiment, except in the novel, he decides to go into the box himself. And what happens when he wakes up in the box is instead of seeing the cube he walked into, he sees a tesseract. And so what a tesseract is, and if you've ever seen the movie, what's the one with, oh, I like the movie so much and I can't remember the name of it. Oh my gosh, Matthew McConaughey. Oh, it begins with an I think. Oh, I cannot remember the name of the movie. Well, anyway, it's a movie where he's an astronaut in space, and the name will come to me, I'm sure. Matthew McConaughey. Yikes. Anyway, at the end of the movie, he's observing or in a tesseract, and he sees all these doors and ultimate possibilities. So I have always tried to figure out and understand a tesseract. So I'm going to define it, and it's important because this is what happens in the novel, and that's why it's like such a good book. So in our world, we live in a three-dimensional space, but we can understand two dimensions as well. So for example, if you write a drawing on a piece of paper, you're looking at a two-dimensional depiction of your art. But in 3D, that's like your living life. You can see this part of your hand, this part of your hand, this part of your hand, because we live in a three-dimensional world. Well, in a tesseract, not only is there two dimensions like we have, like a square with four sides, or three dimensions when we have a cube with 6 square faces. A tesseract is composed of 8 cubes, and it represents three-dimensional slices because there's 8 cubes in a tesseract. And so it's hard for us to imagine what that is because we don't live in a 4D or a 5D world. But that's why I loved that movie. Gosh, I'm going to have to go grab it now. It's driving me crazy. Where at the end, he's in a tesseract, and it's like, oh, that's what a tesseract might look like. If you remember the name of the movie, it just has one name. Comment below, because this is driving me crazy. And it's like one of my favorite movies, and I can't remember the name of it. Don't you hate when that happens? So anyways, because our experience is limited to a three-dimensional space, it's hard for us to imagine a tesseract. But in the novel Dark Matter, he enters this cube he's invented because he's this brilliant physicist. And then when he wakes up, he's looking down the hallway, and it's basically a tesseract. And there's doors and doors and doors, and it goes on for infinity. It goes on forever. And if he opens one door, it's a mirror image of the world he was living in until he entered the cube. Or if he goes to the next door, it's another mirror image of the world he lived in, but maybe this time they didn't invent an iPad. Then he goes to the next door. It's in another world, same world, but maybe in this one there was no such thing as a telephone, but everything else is the same. And so this concept is known as the multiverse. So if you've ever heard of, hey, do you believe in the multiverse? It's the theory that So me being Andrea sitting here, and here are my particles, because you're observing me, that my particles can exist in universes, worlds right next to mine, layered upon layered upon layered right next to mine. And I might not have the same personality, or I haven't made the same decisions in my life, including everyone else in that world or that universe right next to us. So it'll take a totally different life course. You know, when you make a big decision in your life, just say if you decide to get married, you either decide to get married to that person or you don't. And then you go ahead and you get married. And then you ever wonder, gosh, what would my life have been if I didn't get married? Well, guess what? In the multiverse, or the world right next to ours that we can't see, maybe that life is taking place. So all the possibilities and the choices you made in life creates another universe. So that's the theory of, at least in this novel, of the multiverse. And I tell you what, it's actually an action-packed novel, so I couldn't put it down. But there was all these principles of physics and science that after I read something, I had to just lay back and kind of think about it like, oh, okay, that's what a tesseract might look like. Or, oh, okay, I get how a multiverse could happen there. And just really interesting. So I highly, and I don't want to give away anything else in the book. I'll just give away that much right now. But I highly recommend Dark Matter. It's a great beach read, a great summer read. And then comment below if you've read it, or if you're going to read it, or kind of what you think about these theories or principles. I would love to hear it and have a conversation about it below. Hope you're having a great summer. I'll see you on the next one.